welcome to my channel, Sprouts with Joy. My name is Joy. I'm so glad that you're here. I do have an admission, is that the word? I do have an admission. A confession. Okay, I do have a confession to make. These plants are not normally in this space, but I wanted to do it for the vibe, for the aesthetic. I know, but the frame just looks so empty without them. So it's cozier. So I don't know, enjoy. Anyways, today we are going to be talking about the best affordable plants, disclaimer, asterisk, in my opinion, and based on my own experience. Now, we all love the rare plant craze, but honestly, realistically, not everyone can afford these astronomical prices for plants. I think that we should take some time to appreciate these more affordable plants. So whether you are a beginner or you've been working with houseplants for 20 years, I think that these are plants that you should consider adding to your list if you're looking to get a new plant. So let's just jump right into it. All right, the first plant that I have, a philodendron Brasil. Oh, I totally forgot. I do have to, before we jump into it, I do have to say something. I have to establish the parameters of what an affordable houseplant even is. So in my opinion, I would say an affordable houseplant is a plant that, you can get a decent size of it, say like a good solid 4-inch pot at least for less than $20. I would say like maybe even more, like less than $15. I'd say most of these plants I got for $10 to $15 in that range. So anyway, with that aside, philodendron Brasil. Truly, I have a really soft spot for the philodendron scandens or heartleaf philodendron, whatever you want to call it. The other name, I can visualize it, but it's not like Hericidium. I don't know. For some reason, as soon as I turn on the camera, my brain is like, I can't remember anything. But anyways, that's a solid plant. But if I were to pick every single plant that I really liked, it would be way too long of a video. So I had to narrow it down a little bit. And I would say definitely of the two, I think I do prefer the philodendron Brasil. I think that it adds a lot without being too loud. It doesn't quite blend in because of, look at that variegation. It's really pretty. I don't know. I don't have a ton to say about this plant specifically, other than I'm super excited for when it gets really big. I've seen pretty decent pots of this go for about $9 with beautiful, beautiful foliage. I would say this is definitely one, if you don't have it, I would consider adding it to your collection. I've considered getting a second one, but then I'm like, okay, hold on, hold your horses. There are lots of other trailing plants and climbing plants that you can add. Or I could just propagate this and wait and watch it grow. I don't want to get my house way too full of plants to where it's irksome. So I do need to be selective, but this is an absolute beauty. I have her hanging on the wall. So this next plant is a goeppertia zebrina. Now, I know it's a bit of a hot take because calatheas, which this is also kind of known as a calathea, but things have been recategorized and whatnot. But calatheas and, the Marantaceae family, but I would say calatheas generally have been shoved into a hate box by a lot of people just because they're so finicky. It's like they lure you in with their striking foliage, especially beginners, because I would say beginners are very drawn to them for good reason. And then they have them in their home and they don't have a humidifier or distilled water, and then they just crisp up and die and hate you. And even if you do provide those things, they can still kind of not like you because they do tend to be finicky. And I understand. I really do. But I have a super soft spot for calathea. I still haven't gotten their care 100% perfect. Sometimes I don't have distilled water on hand, so I water them with filtered water that's been sitting out, and it's not quite as good, and you can see that because of, you know, slightly crispy edges. It's not 100% happy with me, but I do have a humidifier running next to them. I keep them moist, but I don't, just the way that these leaves rise and fall and the striking pattern on them, I would say of all the calatheas that I own, the zebrina is probably my favorite. Just look at the foliage and look at that pattern. I think it's so striking. I got this guy for around $16, which I thought was an absolute steal because look at it. It's beautiful. And I was shocked when I saw this for that amount of money. It could be different wherever you're from, but for me, it was definitely affordable, and it's one of my favorite affordable houseplants in my home. Okay, since we're on the topic of calatheas, goeppertias, whatever the heck you want to call them, I would say the rattlesnake, or Calathea lancifolia, goeppertia ignis, I think is what they call it. It has lots of names, but regardless of what name it is, this guy, I feel like, is pretty ubiquitous. Most nurseries that I go to carry this rattlesnake boy, and I think he's really beautiful. And honestly, even though he's a calathea, I will say, I think that he is the most robust. Is that a good word to use? The most resilient calathea that I own. Because look at this. Look. Check those edges out. I have a humidifier. And even with the humidifier, a lot of my calatheas are still unhappy. But look at him. He doesn't have those dang crispy edges. And I'm shocked that he's just chilling. And he's not putting out new growth right now, but he has put out growth for me in the past. And I have some calathea that downright hate me, and they just, even though I give them as best conditions I can give them other than putting them in a greenhouse, and they're just like, nope. They still just stare at me and want to die. They're still hanging on, but they want to die. Calathea or not, I'm looking at you. But yeah, regardless, this guy, he's another great one. I got him for like 10 bucks. The next affordable houseplant on my list is the Hoya carnosa. Now, I don't have the plain green version, although I will say I think that we need to have some more appreciation for just green foliage because it is probably the most relaxing to me. I would say the eye-catching stuff, wonderful, but the green stuff can get kind of underrated. That side note aside, I do not have the green carnosa, but I have the Crimson Queen and the Crimson Princess, and these were both considerably affordable for me. I think I got, they were both between $10 and $15 for 4-inch pots. Whoopsie. I just spilled some soil. Good. But these guys are just lovely. I don't have a ton of experience with Hoya, admittedly. I'm gonna put that there so that the shadow's not on my face. The really fun part about Hoya, and really about most of these plants, but I would say, these guys specifically, the Hoya carnosa, and their other varieties of Hoya carnosa, is that they have the potential to get really big. And now some people will say that they're slow growers, but if you give them pretty good conditions, they have really good potential. I've seen some massive baskets of Hoya, or, these beautiful trellises with Hoya carnosa, Crimson Queen just climbing up to her heart's delight, and it's honestly stunning. And I feel like the potential to propagate and share Hoya is really strong as well. I know a lot of these plants are pretty easy to propagate, I would say, with the exception of, I don't know if Calathea and goeppertia are particularly good with that. I've never tried. I think that you more so divide them than anything, but Hoya do seem pretty easy to propagate. So you can share them with your friends, and that's a beautiful thing to be able to do. The next plant, or rather plants again, that I have are maranta leuconeura. So this guy is the red-veined one, and this guy is just the green. But you can see they're a little bit confused because I have a grow light and it's nighttime, but they're like, wait, am I supposed to be up or down? I don't really know. Normally this one's like stick straight up. But anyways, I'll set those aside just so the shadow's not in my face, because I have a bad habit. I don't know how to talk with plants in my hands. But anyway, sorry, my cat just beelined for the plant. Anyways, these guys are so beautiful. And I would say the big hanging baskets that I've seen, that's where I want to get, you know, my red vein maranta in particular. I want to get it to that point, and give it just the ideal conditions so that it flourishes and gets huge and lovely. And honestly, sometimes I get annoyed at the growth pattern on these guys because it can look a little bit weird. It's kind of funky and all over the place, but at the right angle, and especially if you have a full basket of it, I feel like it's really soothing. I might have to find a picture and insert it, just so you can get a visual of how fascinating the growth pattern is on these guys. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. They're another plant, again, pretty easy to find. I was just at Lowe's today and I saw pretty big baskets of these red vein maranta, and I also saw maranta green. Now I think I've seen lemon lime maranta in person, but not recently. And that is a maranta that I definitely want to add to my collection at some point, because the longer I've had these, the more I've just fallen in love with them. And I have mentioned them on another video, but yeah, they're great. So this next plant's hanging up behind me and I've got to get it. So it is the scindapsis pictus argyraeus. Now look at, this is one of my favorite vining plants. I have to say, one of my favorite plants in my collection overall. And I have seen scindapsis getting a lot of love, particularly celery and exotica, and then some of the more rare varieties. But sometimes the argyraeus gets a little bit overlooked. But I will say, the argyraeus I mean, all I have to do is just go like this. Like, come on, look at it. It doesn't have quite as much variegation, sure, but it has just enough. And I will say, on the internet, when I was looking at pictures, it wasn't nearly as attractive to me. But once I got it, oh my goodness. Every single day that I look at it, it just puts a smile on my face. I was able to get, I think it was like a 6-inch pot for like $10. And it was already trailing like this, and it's grown quite a bit more since I've gotten it. You can even see it's got lots of new growth popping out right now. I actually, when I was repotting it, I ended up splitting it in half. And I put one in this pot that I kept for myself and the other in another pot for my mother-in-law, and I gave it to my mother-in-law. So I like to think that we have sister plants. It's kind of like, I don't know, Voldemort's wand and Harry's wand have the same core from the same phoenix. Sorry, I'm such a nerd. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I don't know why. But yeah, again, I think that other scindapses tend to get more appreciation and more love, but the argyraeus is very affordable if you're wanting a scindapsis, but you don't want to shell out a whole lot of money. I think the argyraeus is it's the standard scindapsis, and it's the way to go. It's the way to go. I will say also that the Trubia Moonlight, since Costa Farms has put it out, has become a lot more accessible depending on your area. At least it has been for me. I've seen lots of pots of it for only like $13, maybe $15 or so at Walmart and at Lowe's. So that's another scindapsis that's pretty accessible. But yeah, the argyraeus. Don't sleep on it, guys. Don't sleep on it. It's so good. Our next houseplant on the list is actually a succulent, and it is the crassula ovata, but also known as coral jade, gollum jade, or whatever ogre's ear. I've seen a lot of different terms for this guy, but I have garnered a lot more appreciation for him in recent years. He's gone through a lot of abuse, and I've had many crassula ovata jade plants that are like your more standard jade plants, and they're still alive, they're still kicking, but I would say something about how weird this plant is attractive to me. I usually will go for the more standardly beautiful, conventionally attractive, if you might say, plants. But now and again, I can go for a more weird looking plant, and this one definitely, I mean, the names that it's been given are clear enough. Gollum, ogre's ear, they're kind of funky. I have seen, my best friend has a version of this that is really sun stressed, and it's got like fiery red tips to it. And I just recently put this in a south facing window, so I'm hoping that it will get that intense sun stressed look over time, because I just find that to be really beautiful. And then it would really take on, I think, the other name that it has, coral jade. So yeah, if you don't have one of these guys, again, you can add it to your collection. I would say they might be one of my favorite succulents. I used to be a sucker for echeverias, or echeverias, however you want to say it. But the way that they etiolate and stretch out to the sun, I just feel like they're really hard to maintain, and they're not very versatile in where you can place them. But I feel like even these jade guys, like obviously they prefer more sun, but they seem to be pretty darn flexible. At least they have been for me, which I appreciate in a succulent given my past experiences. All right, I feel like I cannot make an affordable house plant list without including pothos, obviously. So this is probably my favorite pothos that I own. It is a marble queen, and it's an absolute monster. Now, this specific specimen was not as affordable because look at her, she's huge. Like, oh my gosh. And you know, so she's super full up top, and she's got some vines that have started coming down, and I'm exceedingly enthusiastic about them. She's just sitting next to my TV kind of on the mantle, and oh my gosh, she's beautiful, and I can't wait for her to just cascade down. But anyway, so I wanted to feature her specifically, but I would say most pothos, there are some rarer varieties like the global green and emerald and mandula that seem to be more expensive in general, but I'd say your standard pothos, you can get good pots, you know, golden pothos, you got your enjoy pothos, you got your pearls and jade, your marble queen / snow queen, you've got, what other pothos? Oh, neon pothos, jade pothos, I don't know if I mentioned that. But yeah, there's a lot of pothos to choose from. Any pothos that fits your taste. I mean, I feel like there's a pothos for every style. There's a pothos for people that like more white variegation. There's a pothos for people that prefer smaller leaves. There's a pothos for people that like really bright, striking leaves. There's a pothos for people that like just your classic green, plain leaf. But yeah, they're a great standard plant, and they're extremely accessible. And I think every beginner should have a pothos. Every plant owner should probably have a pothos, unless for some reason you hate them. But I mean, philodendron, like the heartleaf philodendron, they can be a fine substitute for pothos. But I'd say pothos were some of the first foliage houseplants that I truly fell in love with and started collecting. And I have a really soft spot in my heart for them. And I love that they can just climb up the wall. They're truly the plant that can make your home feel like a jungle, because they're prolific growers. They're super rewarding and really easy to take care of in general. As long as you don't like overwater them, like they're super tough, and their roots are very hardy. And they've been through a lot of abuse and neglect from myself and from, I'm sure, pretty much virtually any plant owner. But if you haven't gotten one yet for any reason, whatever, I mean, they're affordable, generally speaking, as long as you're not going for those rare Jesenia pothos, you know, which those are more expensive. I have got lots of plans for my pothos. I would love them to start climbing things. Honestly, okay, I have seen some people making their marble queen climb up a plank or up a moss pole, and their leaves get so big and they resemble a Monstera albo. Yeah. So that's another thing that you could definitely do. But even if you just prefer them to hang down, like honestly, they're so chill. They're so chill. I love them. Next up, we've got syngonium. This one is the white butterfly. I've got 2 other white butterflies. And I've also got a Neon robusta, that's a pink one. But yeah, syngoniums, it feels like there are dozens of pretty affordable syngoniums. Obviously, there are some more expensive ones too. Anyways, I'd say you can never go wrong with going back to the basics with syngoniums because, I don't know, there's something really understated about this foliage. And I know this guy isn't the biggest basket ever, but again, when you see them get really big, it's so satisfying to me. But of course, you know, you can appreciate the small plants too. If there's a through line that you can see, it's that I've seen larger versions. So I'm like, oh, I'm excited. But anyways, so something that I appreciate about syngoniums is that they are really versatile. And I know a lot of philodendron are also versatile, but you know, you can get them to climb things. I'd say that they can be really compact and bushy, which is a cool look. And they also make really great hanging, vining baskets. So really you can grow them however you want. Honestly, I've even seen one as like a really tall, large floor plant. So yeah, they're great. They can do whatever the heck you want them to. And like I was saying earlier about green foliage, I'd say the white butterfly, I mean, it's got some nice variegation on it. It gets paler. Like if you want a whiter look, you just bring it closer to the sun and it'll put out lighter growth. But if you want a deeper green, you just keep it in a low light situation and it'll put out darker growth, kind of closer to this leaf, but even darker. It has the potential to do that. So yeah, these are really cool plants that truly I think is worth the probably less than $10 you'd spend on it. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and comment down below what you think the best affordable houseplants are. Do you disagree with me? Do you have some other opinions? Did I forget your favorite affordable houseplant? I don't know, but let me know, and like or subscribe if you enjoyed my video. Honestly, this is a community here, or I want this to be a community, and I want to engage with you guys. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye.